10 years of marriage teaches you the small signals, the tired sighs, the way someone says, "I'm exhausted," when they actually mean something else entirely. That Thursday night, Sarah came home late for what she called a work dinner, collapsed onto couch, and told me she was too tired to even talk. I brought her a glass of water, kissed her forehead, and went back to cleaning the kitchen. Around 11, I noticed her laptop still open on the coffee table, the screen glowing faintly in the dark living room. She never left it open. She never left anything unlocked, honestly. I walked over just to close it. Nothing more, the way you tidy up any forgotten item before bed. But the messaging app was still active on the screen, mid-conversation, and one name caught my eye immediately because it wasn't a client, wasn't a co-worker I recognized from her company's directory. My hand hovered over the trackpad longer than it should have. I told myself to walk away, to respect her privacy, to trust a woman I had built an entire business and a home with. But something in my gut refused to let me close that screen without looking first. The conversation wasn't work-related at all. It was intimate, familiar, filled with inside jokes and callbacks to moments I had never heard about. My chest tightened as I scrolled upward, watching months of messages unfold between my wife and a man named David, someone she had apparently met through a networking event I remembered her mentioning only in passing. There were compliments exchanged that no business colleague should ever share. There were plans discussed for a weekend conference that suddenly felt entirely fabricated. I sat down slowly on the couch, laptop balanced on my knees, my hands trembling as the truth of 10 years quietly unraveled before me. I scrolled further back, desperate for context that might explain this away as harmless, but instead I found something worse. References to our joint business account. Screenshots of financial documents I didn't recognize being sent to him. Conversations about restructuring that had never been discussed with me, her actual business partner and husband. My mind raced between two devastating realizations happening simultaneously. She wasn't just betraying our marriage. She may have been making financial decisions behind my back with someone who had no right to see our company's private information. The betrayal suddenly felt twice as heavy, twice as dangerous. I didn't wake her. I didn't confront her right there in the dark living room with rage boiling under my skin. Instead, I did something I never imagined myself capable of. I calmly copied everything relevant to my personal email, screenshotted financial conversations, and documented timestamps carefully before closing the laptop exactly the way I'd found it. I walked upstairs like a stranger in my own home, lying beside a woman I had trusted completely, staring at the ceiling until sunrise crept to the blinds, my mind replaying 10 years of memories I could no longer trust. The next morning, I made coffee like always. I kissed her goodbye when she left for the office, same as every Friday for years. But inside, I was already speaking with an accountant friend, requesting an emergency review of our joint business finances, understanding exactly what had been moved, transferred, or hidden. I needed clarity before confrontation, proof before accusations, because I knew she would try to minimize whatever I presented unless the evidence left absolutely no room for denial or manipulation on her part. 2 days later, I laid everything out on our dining room table, the messages, the financial documents, the timestamps proving months of communication I was never meant to see. Sarah's face went pale, then defensive, then desperate, cycling through excuses about stress, about feeling unappreciated, about David being just a friend who understood her professionally in ways I supposedly didn't anymore. But I had spent a decade learning every version of her voice, and this wasn't confusion. This was someone caught red-handed, scrambling to rewrite a story that the evidence had already written clearly. The hardest part wasn't emotional betrayal alone. It was discovering that our business, something we had built together from nothing, had quietly been put at risk through decisions made without my knowledge or consent. Money had been moved into accounts I didn't recognize. Conversations about future plans excluded me entirely, as if I were already erased from a life we were supposed to be building side by side. I realized then that this wasn't just an affair. It was a complete unraveling of trust across every single area of our shared existence. Separating our business became almost as painful as separating our marriage. Lawyers, accountants, and mediators picked apart 10 years of shared decisions, shared risk, and shared success that suddenly needed to be divided based on betrayal rather than partnership. I fought hard, not out of spite, but because I refused to lose everything I had worked for simply because trust had been broken behind my back. Every late night, every sacrifice, every risk we had taken together as business partners now needed protecting from someone who no longer saw me as an equal, but as an obstacle. Explaining the situation to close friends and family was its own exhausting battle, filled with questions I didn't always have answers to. Why didn't I see it sooner? How could 10 years hide something this significant? I stopped trying to justify my blindness and instead focused on documenting reality clearly, protecting what remained of my finances, my reputation, and my emotional stability. Slowly, painfully, I began separating the version of my life I believed existed from the version that had actually been happening quietly behind closed laptops and locked phones for months. Today, I run our former business alone, rebuilt from the ground up under a new name, new structure, and new boundaries that protect me completely. It hasn't been easy, and some nights the anger still creeps back unexpectedly, especially when I think about how close I came to losing everything I built without even knowing it was at risk. But I've learned that trust isn't just about fidelity. It's about transparency in every corner of shared life, financial and emotional both. If you're reading this and something feels slightly off, trust that instinct immediately. Sometimes the most damaging betrayals aren't hidden in whispered secrets alone, but in open laptops, quiet transactions, and conversations you were never meant to see, waiting patiently for the one night you finally decide to look closer instead of looking away.